History tells us that every dictatorship has an expiration date. From the French Revolution to the Arab Spring, oppressed people eventually push back. But then there's North Korea, a place where the clock of resistance seems to have stopped frozen for over 70 years. Is it because they are happy? Or because they are too scared? The answer is far more complex. It's not just fear. It's a perfectly engineered system of social paralysis. To understand why there is no coup, we first have to look at the invisible cages built around every single citizen. In most countries, the unit of society is the individual or the family. In North Korea, the unit is the inminban, the neighborhood watch. Your neighbors aren't just people you wave to. They are official monitors who report your every move, your every visitor, and even the smell of your kitchen. Think about the logic of a revolution. You need trust. You need to be able to whisper to your neighbor, "Are you tired of this too?" But in a system where your neighbor gets a reward for reporting your whisper, trust is a luxury that can get your entire family erased. This is the mutual surveillance trap. It creates a psychological desert. When you can't trust the person next to you, you can't organize. And without organization, a mob is just a collection of frightened individuals, not a revolutionary force. Then there is the 3 generations of punishment. If you commit a political crime, like criticizing the leader, it's not just you who goes to the gulag. Your parents, your spouse, and your children go with you. The regime holds your bloodline hostage. This effectively kills the hero instinct. A man might be willing to die for freedom, but is he willing to watch his 5-year-old daughter starve in a labor camp for it? The cost of rebellion is calculated in the lives of everyone you love. But what about the military? Surely the guys with the guns could do something. Well, the regime knows that too. That's why the military isn't one single block. It's a fragmented puzzle of competing intelligence agencies designed to watch each other. In North Korea, soldiers spend more time watching each other for disloyalty than they do training for combat. It's a circular firing squad where everyone has a gun to someone else's back. To start a coup, you need to coordinate. But to coordinate, you have to talk. And talking is the most dangerous thing you can do. This is just the surface of the cage. The real bars aren't made of iron. They are made of information. Or rather, the lack of it. To see how they control the mind before the body, we have to look deeper into the architecture of isolation. Control over the body is one thing, but control over the eyes and ears is where the real power lies. In North Korea, there is no outside world. There is only the official narrative, broadcasted 24/7 through speakers that you aren't even allowed to turn off. The internet as we know it doesn't exist. There is only Kwangyong, a domestic intranet, that is basically a digital library of state praise. It's a walled garden, where the walls are made of firewalls, and the garden is filled with propaganda. Without a point of comparison, it's hard to spark a rebellion. If you've never seen a world where people can vote, travel, or speak freely, you don't even know you're missing them. The regime doesn't just hide the truth. They delete the very concept of alternative. Radios and televisions are hardwired to receive only state frequencies. Owning a modified device that can pick up foreign signals is a crime punishable by death or the gulag. Information is treated like a biological weapon, dangerous and highly infectious. This creates a total monopoly on reality. When every textbook, every news report, and every movie tells you that the outside world is a hellscape of poverty and war, staying inside the cage starts to feel like a privilege. It's the ultimate gaslighting of an entire nation. A revolution requires a shared vision of a better future. But when you are deprived of information, you can't even imagine what that future looks like. You are stuck in a perpetual now, where the only goal is surviving the next 24 hours. The fear of the unknown is a powerful tool. The regime paints the outside world as a monster, waiting to devour them. If you destroy the bridge to the outside, the people have nowhere to run, and no one to call for help. They are truly alone. Even the elite aren't safe from the blackout. High-ranking officials are kept in golden cages, monitored even more strictly than the poor. They have access to more, but they have the most to lose. In North Korea, the higher you climb, the thinner the air becomes. When a society is blinded, it loses its ability to organize. A rebellion isn't just a physical act, it's an intellectual one. By cutting off the flow of thoughts, the regime ensures that the seeds of revolution never even have a chance to sprout. This information blockade is the second wall of the cage. It keeps the mind trapped, while the secret police keep the body in line. But there is a third wall, even more visceral and brutal, the physiology of hunger and the politics of the stomach. A starving man doesn't plot a revolution. He plots his next meal. In North Korea, food is not a right, it's a political tool. The state-run distribution system ensures that your loyalty is directly tied to the calories you receive. When you are constantly at the edge of survival, your brain enters a scarcity mode. Higher cognitive functions, like questioning authority or dreaming of liberty, shut down. Your entire existence shrinks to the size of a bowl of corn gruel. This is the politics of the stomach. By keeping the population in a state of chronic malnutrition, the regime effectively lobotomizes the spirit of rebellion. A person who is too weak to walk is too weak to storm a palace. The distribution system is ranked by Songbun, the hereditary caste system. If your ancestors were loyal, you eat. If they were deemed hostile, you starve. You are punished for the thoughts your grandfather might have had. This creates a desperate competition for favor. To survive, you must show more loyalty than your neighbor. The regime doesn't need to hunt for rebels. They've created an environment where everyone is too busy competing for scraps to unite. Even during the Great Famine in the 90s, when millions died, there was no mass uprising. Why? Because famine isolates people. It breaks the social contract so completely that even family members turn on each other for a handful of beans. A revolution requires physical energy. It requires the ability to congregate, to march, and to fight. In North Korea, energy is a luxury, reserved only for the elite and the internal security forces who keep the hungry in line. The black markets have changed things slightly, providing a lifeline outside the state. But even here, the regime allows them to exist only because they prevent a total collapse. It's a controlled pressure valve to stop the pot from exploding. When survival is a daily miracle, defiance is an unthinkable risk. The biological drive to stay alive is hijacked by the state to ensure total submission. The cage isn't just around your house, it's inside your digestive system. Physical hunger is paired with a psychological vacuum. But there is a fourth wall, perhaps the most terrifying of all, the divine myth. The regime doesn't just want your food. They want to be the only reason you have a soul. The final wall of the cage isn't made of steel or hunger, it's made of divinity. In North Korea, the leader is not just a politician. He is a godlike figure, an infallible being who controls the weather and understands the deepest thoughts of his people. This is more than propaganda. It's a state religion. From the moment children learn to speak, their first words are often directed toward the great leader. Every home, every school, and every workplace is a shrine to this cult of personality. If you believe your leader is a god, rebellion isn't just a crime, it's a sin. It's a spiritual betrayal. When the regime controls the definition of good and evil, they don't just control your actions, they own your conscience. The state uses ideological cleaning sessions. Citizens must gather to confess their wrong thoughts and criticize their peers. It's a public exorcism of doubt, ensuring that no seed of skepticism can ever grow into a tree of resistance. This psychological layering creates a society of acting. Everyone wears a mask of loyalty to survive. But when everyone acts perfectly for 70 years, the line between the mask and the face begins to disappear. You become the lie you tell. Even if you hate the system in secret, you assume everyone else loves it. This is pluralistic ignorance. You feel alone in your dissent. And because you feel alone, you never speak. The silence of the majority is the regime's greatest weapon. The regime also erases the history of other revolutions. There are no stories of people toppling kings or workers seizing rights. By deleting the history of human freedom, they ensure the people have no roadmap for how to fight back. Without the language of protest, protest becomes impossible. You cannot organize a movement for democracy if you have never been taught what the word means. The regime has hijacked the very vocabulary of the human soul. The cult of personality creates a terrifying sense of fate. People are told their suffering is a holy sacrifice for a greater cause. When pain is sanctified, it loses its power to trigger anger. Instead, it triggers endurance. Fear, hunger, and isolation have built the cage. Divinity has locked the door. But as the 21st century leaks in through the cracks, even the most perfect cages begin to rattle. To see what might finally break the silence, we must look at the future. The cage remains, but it is no longer airtight. The 21st century is a digital ghost that doesn't respect borders. Through smuggled USB drives and illegal SD cards, the outside world is leaking into the minds of the people, one K-drama at a time. When a North Korean sees a commoner in a foreign movie wearing a watch or eating meat without a permit, the great lie starts to dissolve. They realize that the hell they were told about is actually a paradise, compared to, their paradise. The cognitive dissonance is the first step toward change. The black market generation, those who grew up relying on markets instead of state rations, is different. They have a sense of individualism that their parents never had. They didn't learn to love the state. They learned to love the trade. Their loyalty is for sale, not for faith. But don't expect a North Korean spring tomorrow. The cost of failure is still death for 3 generations. For a mass uprising to happen, the fear of the state must be smaller than the fear of staying the same. We aren't there yet, but the gap is closing. The real danger to the regime might not come from the bottom, but from the top. As elites get more exposure to the outside, their greed might outweigh their loyalty. A coup requires coordination among those who have the guns, and the fear of being purged is the only thing keeping them from talking. The international community often waits for a hero, but in North Korea, heroes are executed before they can speak. The preparation we see today is quiet, a slow erosion of the state's monopoly on truth. It is a war of attrition, fought in the hearts and minds of the silent majority. What can we do? We must keep the information flowing. The more the North Korean people know about the world, and about their own rights, the thinner the walls of the cage become. Information is the only weapon that can bypass the secret police. We must also prepare for the day the cage finally breaks. A sudden collapse could lead to a massive humanitarian crisis or a civil war. Resilience for us means having a plan for the aftermath, to ensure that freedom doesn't turn into chaos. The silence in North Korea is not consent, it is a survival strategy. Underneath the forced cheers and the synchronized marches, there is a human spirit waiting for its moment. The architecture of control is powerful, but it is built on the sand of lies. I'm Abel. The walls of the invisible cage are thick, but no prison lasts forever. The most dangerous thing to a dictator isn't a bomb, it's a person who has stopped believing the lie. Keep your eyes on the shadows.